Hi, I'm back at school now, and we're learning about forces in motion in science. Can you write up a three-part lecture that includes activities for eighth graders?
Sure, I'd be happy to help with that. Here's a three-part lecture on forces in motion. Part 1, Introduction to Forces and Motion. Forces are a fundamental part of our universe. They are the reason why things move or stop moving. A force is simply a push or a pull on an object. This push or pull can cause an object to speed up, slow down, change direction, or change shape. For example, when you kick a soccer ball, you're applying a force to it. This force causes the ball to move. The harder you kick, the greater the force and the further the ball will go. Forces can be balanced or unbalanced. Balanced forces are equal in size and opposite in direction. When forces are balanced, an object stays still or continues moving at the same speed and in the same direction. For instance, if you and a friend are playing tug of war and neither of you is pulling harder than the other, the forces are balanced and the rope doesn't move. On the other hand, unbalanced forces are not equal, and they can cause changes in motion. If you pull harder on the rope in the tug-of-war game, your friend will slide towards you. The force you're applying is greater, so the forces are unbalanced. Now, let's try an activity to see these concepts in action. Find a toy car and a book. Place the car on a flat surface and give it a push. What happens? The car moves, right? You've just applied an unbalanced force to the car. Next, place the book in the car's path and push the car again. What happens when the car hits the book? It stops. The book has applied an opposing force to the car, stopping its motion. Through this activity, you can see how forces can cause objects to move, stop, or change direction. Remember, forces are all around us and they're the reason why everything moves or stops moving. Part 2, Newton's Laws of Motion. Isaac Newton, a famous scientist, came up with 3 laws that describe how forces work. These laws help us understand everything from why a ball rolls down a hill to how rockets launch into space. First law, inertia. An object at rest stays at rest, and an object in motion stays in motion unless acted on by an unbalanced force. This is also known as the law of inertia. For example, if you slide a book on a table, it eventually stops because of the unbalanced force of friction. Second law, the force on an object is equal to its mass times its acceleration, F1 ma. This means that if you push 2 objects with the same force, the one with less mass will accelerate more. Third law, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. This means that any force exerted on a body will create a force of equal magnitude but in the opposite direction on the object that exerted the first force. For example, if you push a wall, the wall pushes back with an equal amount of force. Now, let's try an activity to understand the second law. Get your toy car again and try pushing it gently, then more forcefully. Notice how it moves faster when you apply more force? That's Newton's second law in action. The force you apply, your push, is causing the car, the object, to accelerate. Understanding these laws can help us make sense of how objects move and how forces work in our everyday lives. Part 3, Gravity and Friction. Gravity is a force that pulls objects towards each other. It's the reason why we stay on the ground and why things fall when you drop them. The Earth's gravity pulls objects towards its center. For example, when you jump, you come back down because of gravity. The higher you jump, the harder gravity pulls you back down. Friction is another force that we experience every day. It's the force that opposes motion between 2 surfaces that are in contact. When you slide a book across a table, it eventually stops because of friction. Friction can be useful. It's what allows you to grip objects or walk without slipping. But it can also act as a resistance. It's why we need to exert force to push heavy objects or why we slow down when we stop pedaling a bike. Now let's try an activity to understand these forces better. Try dropping different objects from the same height. Make sure they won't break. You might expect heavier objects to fall faster, but you'll notice that they hit the ground at the same time. That's gravity in action. Understanding gravity and friction helps us understand why objects move the way they do and how we can predict their movement. Let's recap everything we've learned. 1. Forces and motion. A force is a push or pull on an object that can cause it to move, stop, or change direction. Forces can be balanced, equal in size and opposite in direction, or unbalanced, not equal, causing changes in motion. 2. Newton's laws of motion. These laws describe how forces work. The first law, inertia, states that an object at rest stays at rest, and an object in motion stays in motion unless acted on by an unbalanced force. The second law states that the force on an object is equal to its mass times its acceleration, F(m)(a). The third law states that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. 3. Gravity and friction. Gravity is a force that pulls objects towards each other, while friction is a force that opposes motion between two surfaces in contact. Gravity is why things fall when dropped, and friction is why objects eventually stop when sliding or rolling. Through various activities, we've seen these concepts in action, such as pushing a toy car to observe changes in motion, or dropping objects to see the effect of gravity. Understanding these fundamental concepts of forces and motion helps us make sense of the world around us and predict how objects will move.